McDonald's Big Mac. It's more than just another hamburger. There are 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, and onions on a sesame seed bun. 7 great ingredients working together to make one great taste. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, cheese, lettuce, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Get the idea?
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
It's your McDonald's Big Mac. You've got to taste it to believe it, you know what I mean?
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 all-beef patties.
Let me say a few words about McDonald's Big Mac. It's
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 whole... Well, what was that word again?
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
Lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, lettuce, cheese, pickles, oh, what am I saying?
You deserve a break today at McDonald's.
Where your dollar gets a break every day.
Hershey is
real milk chocolate, I love that Hershey bar.
Hershey is
That's something special no matter where you are.
anytime you want delicious chocolate, there's no need to go looking very far.
Hershey's great.
'Cause Hershey is the great American chocolate bar.
Finally tonight here, America Strong, the call that came in the middle of the night. The D'Agostino family of suburban Chicago, Mario and Mary, and their 6 children. Kevin D'Agostino was born with cystic fibrosis, a progressive genetic disease of the lungs. For the past 2 years, he has depended on oxygen, carrying a tank everywhere he went, even behind him right there at the pool. He was put on a lung transplant list, waiting 6 long months. Then, the call in the middle of the night. His parents wake him.
You're getting new lungs. No way. No way.
Hugging his mother, and then his father.
You're getting new lungs.
The double lung transplant surgery was a success. And look at this, just 1 day later, up and walking.
This is his 3rd time around.
My goodness. Fantastic.
Weeks later, coming home.
Oh, man, how's it feel?
And then it hits him. His mother, Mary, offering these words.
It speaks to his determination, and it speaks to his bravery, and it speaks to his strength.
The whole neighborhood right there for Kevin, who waited for so long and who came home. What a young man. What a family. And what a remarkable gift from that donor family. Good night.
Hey, Stephanie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. That was a really inspirational video with that guy that got a double lung transplant. I mean, I can imagine suddenly being able to breathe when it feels like you've been breathing underwater for so long.
I know. It's such a challenge. I mean, there are situations out there that we haven't really discussed on the show. And when you see a video like that, it really stops you in your tracks and makes you think that we're all so blessed.
Yeah. And this is completely not unrelated because you did show this earlier, but those commercials that you show in the beginning of this show, are you trying to make me feel old? Because every time I'm like, I remember that commercial back from the 80s.
Well, okay. Well, those are 70 commercials. So you
Oh, God, even worse. Okay.
Well,
I remember the 70s commercials?
I remember the 70s commercials, but you are old. But that McDonald's commercials.
Did you say I'm old?
Did
you say I'm old?
You're getting older by the minute. We're all getting older by the minute. You know, I'm not calling you old. You look great. You look very young, actually.
I look good for my age.
Yeah, you look good for your age, right? But can you say that McDonald's thing?
No, I feel like I was young and I remember trying to say it. I could never lettuce, tomato on a pickled bun. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, so ask me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Can you say the phrase?
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Is that how you order it when you go?
Drop the mic.
Do they give you extra pickles when you order it like that at the drive-thru?
When I was a kid, when that commercial came out, when I was a kid, if you could do it in 7 seconds, you would get a free Big Mac.
So oh my gosh, that's true.
Right. So my mother would say, Steve, you gotta get us dinner here, So I would practice that, and who knew? But the Hershey's, you like chocolate, right?
But wait, did you ever get them free dinner?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Because I said it. I can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago, but I remember what I did that 40 years ago, 40 plus years ago, something like that. We won't go into specifics. But
all right.
Talking about age, before we have an outstanding guest, but talking about age, when you went to school, remember you had to get book covers, to protect your books. Did you ever do this?
Always.
Yes, I am with you with that. I did that all the time. So you are old.
We didn't get those fancy. Other kids got the fancy book covers. We did not. It was whatever newspaper, whatever we could find around the house. Most of the time, bags from the grocery store. But yes, as soon as we got our books, it was exciting to be able to cover it and then make our own cool drawings on that book to make it ours.
Yes. And I used to beg my mother, wherever it was, I wanted to get the real book cover like Spider-Man or sports, but I would always get that. I have to make my own book covers and it always fall apart after the first couple of days.
Yes. Yeah, of course. It didn't last long, which is probably why the schools wanted us to put those book covers on, because they knew how we treated the books.
Right. And did you ever watch TV with using a remote control?
We had one that had like 5 different buttons on it, and it would sometimes click or stick. So the channel would go like that and so the kids, so we were the remote controls. We'd have to go and turn the channel, literally turn the channel.
Right, you had to turn the channel. You had to get up and turn the channel. There was no remote control.
But even turning, there was a button to actually turn, as opposed to now it's just one of these. You actually have to turn the knob.
Right. How does it go? All right. That's good. And I think it went this way and not this way. I think
it's hard. It's hard to know the direction, with the screen and all that.
Yeah, but we got to get serious here. But, because last week we had a serious topic about Gabby Petito, and you did an amazing job on social media connecting with so many people. And I want to commend you, first of all, for that, because it really affected, and it was right up your alley because of toxic relationships and being from Suffolk County, Long Island, New York. Any update, any thoughts, final thoughts to that?
Well, she just was laid up at the funeral home. Basically, I've been to maybe 5 or 6 wakes at the funeral home where she was laid up before she was put to rest. So, I mean, when I talk about literally in my backyard, she lived like 5 minutes away from where I used to live in New York. So, this is a really great opportunity. And now, of course, I know some of the backlash that I'm hearing from some people, which I actually completely agree with, is, there is a little bit of a different way the media is looking at what happened to Gabby, because she is white and she is young. And there's definitely some bias there. And the only thing that I could say that's positive with it is that other people that have been lost to what we think is domestic violence, that have been, murdered, those people are now beginning to be spoken up about. And I think that's one of the big things that I'm seeing with my work and even with these kinds of cases is there's not enough education out there. There's not enough information, and people don't really know how common it is because so many victims suffer in silence. What do you think?
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And the other part of this, I mean, we brought up that this guy's still on the run. I mean, we don't know. I can't believe so much time has gone by, and that just adds more frustration and more heartache and devastation to this whole thing, because it all started apparently with this abusive relationship. There was no intervention, and it got to the point where a murder or a homicide occurred, and now you can't find this guy.
Everyone that I have talked to about this case that has been in abusive relationships themselves, we have all been angry at the fact that from the very beginning, he was not looked at as a potential suspect. In the beginning, it was just, oh, he's someone to talk to. But looking at that traffic stop, and then of course later on hearing the witness who actually called and said they saw him hitting her, all of those things that transpired beforehand, why was he not looked at to be picked up immediately? Why was it something they were kind of letting it go and let more and more time pass? Because there was a lot of weird things that went on. And of course, before any of this happened, there was a chance to help out Gabby. But because was there miscommunication? I mean, I actually just recently heard that the police officers did hear that he had slapped her as the witness reported. Right. And so they had that information, but they didn't use that information to then look at what was happening in like when they met the two people involved in the incident. They were not taking that previous information and using it to help decide what to do with those two people.
Right. Yeah. The whole thing, it has to be tightened up, because what you bring up week after week and in your book and what you experienced and what you share with the clients that you work with, these toxic relationships, I mean, it's so important to get that support and to get out. And it's very complicated for women and men to do that at times because it's so emotionally charged. And I know our guest, Gabby Guest, is going to be talking about that, but you talk about that in your book extensively.
Well, and not only that, but I think that any of us who have been in a toxic relationship and have gotten out and been successful at really creating their best lives, one of the things that we've seen with these toxic or these past toxic partners, it's like there's a playbook. There are certain things that all of them do. And so, because of that experience, that helps me help my clients. But really, that should also be helping law enforcement know what they should do and what they should look out for, because there are typical signs that these abusers show that are very often ignored and could be very subtle to the untrained eye.
Right. No doubt. No doubt. Well, I'm sure we're going to get more updates as we go along with the whole Gabby Petito case, but it was heartbreaking to see that wake and to see so many people affected by this. And I guess that gives us the motivation to continue to do what we do, because more people around the country, like Gabby, our guest, is doing that. I think the more and more we do that, and the more and more there's platforms like we provide, not just us, everybody provides a platform. Because I always say we could do counseling one-on-one, like if I was to talk to you one-on-one for 45 minutes and then move on. But if you could put a microphone or a camera in front of you, then you have the opportunity to share that knowledge or empowerment or experience with others. And I think that's what we do every Wednesday, Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb, from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have 3 quotes here. I want to share 2 of them. And when our guest comes on, we'll ask her to participate in the third one. Our first quote here, tell me what you think. You have to let people go. Everyone is in your life are meant to be in your journey, but not all of them are meant to stay till the end. What do you think, Steph?
I strongly believe that everyone is put in our path for us to learn from, and that could be for a moment or for a lifetime. But there's a purpose for people to come into our lives, and we can learn that lesson and then decide how we want to continue that relationship with them. So I totally agree.
Okay, I do too. I mean, sometimes people you're in their journey, but they're meant to be in that moment of time and to move on. It could be a catalyst, like a toxic relationship or something, but at that moment in time that you have to move on from, to learn from, and maybe that's what it's all about too. The second quote here we have, if you are serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. I mean, this pandemic was really affecting everybody. Do you agree with that?
Oh my gosh. And this is a very frustrating thing, because when you're in a toxic relationship, it's very much about survival mode. And so I don't want to victim shame anyone who is in that type of relationship, but I want to empower anyone who is to know that you really are the one with the power to get out. It doesn't mean that you deserve what you're going through, but you are the one who has to decide, just like I did. There was never going to be a toxic relationship again the way I'd experienced before. That's the promise that I had to make to myself. But then I had to create the team of people that knew better than me, which was a coach and a therapist and healthy friends and all these other things that I knew that I needed, because I didn't know what to do. And so it's not, when we don't know what to do, we don't know what the next step is. So having experts on our side will help us to really figure it out. But it's for us to make a decision that we will take immediate action and do whatever it takes to create change.
Right, right. Well said, well said. Before we bring our guests on, we have a Family Feud segment here, and it's kind of about hospitals. And I chose this one because I spent time in the hospital over the last year. Stephanie, your husband spent time in the hospital over the last year, and our guest spent time in the hospital as well in her journey. So here's a little lighthearted thing about hospitals, and then Steph, you'll segue our amazing guest.
Okay.
Point values are double. Top 5 answers on the board. Name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
Drugs.
Drugs, man. All right, let's go. All right, Emily, the future veterinarian, name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
Needles.
Needles. Well, come on, Dr. Psychologist, name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
Pillows.
Pillows. All right, Joey, name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
I've been in the hospital, and I really like the robes with the open back, so I'm going to take one. I'm going to take one of those.
Like the robe with the booty out.
Not the only one.
Name something a patient might steal from a hospital, Susie.
The bedpan. It's so convenient.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
Teacher.
You know, when I first came over here and I met this family, I said, man, this is a really, really nice family. He like walking around with his ass out.
I do, Steve.
And she likes the convenience of a bedpan.
We're all about simplicity.
30 years married.
Bedpan, stealing it from the hospital. Come on now. Come on. Let's pull it together now. Come on, TJ. We got 2 strikes. You need to be careful now. The Johnson family could steal.
I'm going to go with a regular answer and say, like, bandages.
Bandages. One answer left. You can clear the board, little Emily. We got 2 strikes, though. We need to be careful. Name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
This isn't really a normal answer, but I'm gonna say blood.
You just never know.
Some blood. Name something a patient might steal from a hospital.
Their medical record.
Medical records. Number 3. Your ass on YouTube.
So, Steph, did you ever steal anything from the hospital?
No, but I laugh because when my husband David came home, basically the nurses just kind of took everything that he used from the hospital and just put it in bags, and we brought it all home, and most of it went in the garbage because, like, what are the things, like, luckily he didn't stay sick for that long, but I was like, thanks, I don't need this many, whatever things they gave us. It's like, I'm just going to throw it in the garbage. So did you steal anything from the hospital?
No, but is that the bag of stuff that you talk about right behind you?
Shh, no looking, don't look.
All right, we got an amazing guest, Gabby Gaston. Now let's get her on because she does amazing work. She's overcome amazing. She has an amazing journey and story which she wants to share with it. She has a story that she needs to tell and get out there, but she's changing the world with the work that she does. Let's bring her on.
What's up, Gabby?
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I am so excited to have you on the show. And I definitely, to anyone, this is your first time seeing Gabby. Yes. The first time that we met online, and I was telling Steve before the show, is that, you've been through so much that I know you want to talk about, but you still have this glowing light and presence about you that's just so, I can feel the joy coming out of you, which is such a pleasure to talk to and be just a part of your presence. So thank you for sharing your light with us today on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
But-
Thank you.
So I have to confess, my favorite thing to steal from the hospital when I was in, which used to be like over 3 times a year, was the pants.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
They had pants in your hospital? That sounds like a fancy hospital.
They were one size fits all and with a drawstring, but they were so comfortable just to sit in all day. So
Well, just so you know, Gabby, we have 10 hospitals in the Milwaukee area that watch this show every day.
yes.
Wait, Gabby, are you wearing them now? That's what we really want to know.
I'm gonna run and get them real fast and be like, I my pants.
There we go. But Gabby, on a serious note, you've overcome something really emotionally charged but medically challenged. Can you share with our viewers a little bit what we're talking about?
Yeah, so I was born with cystic fibrosis, and I was 6 weeks old when I was diagnosed. I was a very sick baby, and when we found out, it gave my parents 11 years that I would make it only until 11. Spoiler alert, it's like 2 decades past that, so we're clear. And I was just sick a lot, chronic lung infections. In high school, I got mono. I was doing track, and I was rather healthy for what I had. And when I got mono, I ended up in the ICU, and I really pushed through, and I survived that sickness. And when I came out, from that point on, around 16 years old, I experienced very sick lungs, and they started to deteriorate, and my lung capacity decreased from that point forward. Fast forward through a lot of things: high school sweethearts, toxic relationships, adoption. There's so much we can talk about. And in 2015, I went through I was with my then husband. We were together for a total of 10 years, and it was mentally and emotionally draining and abusive. And we were on a vacation together over a holiday, and he ended up hitting me while we were driving in the car. I was driving, and the kids were in the back, and his family was in there as well. And when I think about it, it kind of gets me choked up, but at that point I just had to go. I knew I had a lot going on, and my health was getting worse and worse, and I wasn't really supported by him. And so I knew he would never, there was nothing between him and the kids that was unhealthy. It's just the two of us. We were not good for each other. It wasn't healthy. Fast forward a couple of years, so that was 2015, I divorced, and then a couple of years later, I met my now husband. He is fantastic, and just to show how amazing he is, 8 months after we were together, I was buying a house, and we were moving in together, and I got sick very quickly. 1 week after I closed on my house, I ended up in the hospital on 24/7 oxygen and tethered, oxygen around the house on a big, I called it my oxygen leash. And I was down for the count. And within a couple weeks, I was listed for a double lung transplant. It was really hard. We have 3 kids, the two of us. I have 2. They're now almost 9 on Monday and 11, and they're both adopted. And then he brought a son with him from a past relationship, and he's right in the middle at 10. So 8, I waited on Freighter's transplant list in Milwaukee for a few months, and then I just felt like I needed to list somewhere else. So I listed at UW-Madison, and 5 weeks after I was listed there, I was blessed with a double lung transplant, and it was really, really rough. And my boyfriend at the time, by my side 100%, I had so much support from my family. My ex-husband took our dog, he took the kids, and he just said, you get through this and we will connect afterwards. So he was very helpful for us then. And it was amazing because I wasn't really sure what would happen.
Right.
And then, I woke up and within, I would say it was probably, so I got out of the hospital after about 6 weeks. It was really tough. And then within like 4 weeks from that, I was like wanting to go back to work. I'm like, I need to keep going. Like I can't, I get this like amazing second chance. And ever since then, I've just opened my eyes to, I really was at my lowest low. I've been through like a really hard relationship, so many other things. And I just wanted to take what has happened to me, rewrite it and share it so that people know we all go through a lot and you're not alone. No matter if you're in a toxic relationship, you've left, if you have health conditions and you just feel like no one understands, that's why I'm where I am today.
Well, Gabby, we started off the show. God bless you for that, and your family, first of all, and being able to share that. We started off with a news clip, and you saw a young man receive that same kind of thing. Do you remember getting the call, and how'd you react?
Yeah. So I got the call, and I remember it so well. My stepson and my son, they share a room together, so we do prayer and we say goodnight to them first. Then we go to my daughter's room and we say prayer with her and say goodnight. And as we finished our prayer, my phone rang, and it comes from a number that, you don't know what the number is, but I'm always supposed to answer it. And so I picked it up, and I still get goosebumps. I was sitting on my daughter's bed, and they said, we have a match. It's on its way to the hospital. We need you here in 2 hours. And they are 50 minutes from me. So tucking all the kids into bed, so much was going through my head. And when I saw that clip at the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I will never forget that day. My daughter looked at me, and I could see in her eyes, it went from excitement, like she knew it. She's like, that I don't even have to ask, to it was pure horror. Like she was terrified because like it was happening and nobody knew what would happen. And so she hugged me, she cried, we like sat on the floor together. I was like, we got this. Like, you're going to go with your dad and he's going to go with his mom. And like, we're going to be back together soon. It's just, mom's got to get healthy. And that sits with me a lot. And I love sharing it. Just my daughter, she remembers it too. But the best part about it is when I came out of it and I was doing so much better and, released of all the things driving, my kids were at a couple weeks after, they're like, Mom, calm down. Like, you have so much energy. We are not used to this. Because when I got sick, it was like, all right, let's watch a movie. Let's like sit on the couch. Let's do this. And then I'm like, all right, guys, I can play soccer now. Let's go play soccer. Let's just run around, do this. And so they laugh about that. Like, can you just like sit down now?
Gabby, I got to ask you this question too. Was there a moment where you thought that moment would never happen?
Yeah. So I'm a very positive person, and I truly believe, and so my doctors have said it too, my attitude towards all the cards I've been dealt, I really don't focus on the negative. Of course, it gets me down. It's there. It's normal. For me, I've always been like, there's a way. I know whatever's happening right now is just temporary. Like, we got this. Well, when I was diagnosed, every time in the hospital, I was there 2 to 3 times a year, and I would turn the TV on. I'd pull out my laptop. I'd do work. I'd check email. Like, I was just normal. The second that I got diagnosed with end-stage cystic fibrosis, I never turned the TV on once, and I kept the lights off as often as I could. Now, this was 2019, prior to the pandemic, so anybody could visit me. I didn't want visitors. That was not normal for me. And I wanted to be there for the kids. And so my mom came to visit me one day, and she just walked in and she said, "Are you okay?" No. Sorry, I have diabetes, so just making sure that, sorry. You hear my alarm going off. It's like, just make sure you're good. So when she came in, she asked me, and I just looked at her and I said, Mom, I know I've never said this before, but I've lost hope. Like, I don't feel like this is going to happen. And I thought of all the things of writing letters and stuff to my kids. Like, that was, 2.5 years ago. They were younger, and I just felt like there was so much more left. But I felt like there was always this like on my life. And then she honestly flipped the switch and was like, she was me, just like looking right at me. She's like, Gabby, you got this. Like, we're going to do this. We got you. Like, it just, in that moment, I'm like, okay, like, I'm not one to ask for help, but like right now I can't bear everything on my shoulders, and I need, that support from everyone. And it, I felt like I was losing it then. And even when I went in for transplant, I was told to make like videos for people, and I couldn't do it because I'm like, I know, like, I'm going to make it through this. Like, I just totally believed that everything was going to be okay. When I got out, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Like, it was great.
Wow, that's a blessing. We have a quote here I wanted to share with you, you ladies here, and give me a little thought about it. One breath at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. Patience is the key. Gabby, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it is one breath at a time. I am one of them that is very impatient. I like stuff just, let's go. And I believe you don't realize how important what you have is until it's standing in front of you and just might not be there anymore. Breathing for me became, I thought about it a lot. It gave me a lot of anxiety. Like, what if I don't take the next breath? And it's truly just one breath, one day, no matter what is going on right now. You're going to go to the next day, and whether or not you stay where you are or you found a way to take a step forward, like, believe in you, believe that it's there, and you can, with support of coaches and therapists and everybody, like you were saying, Stephanie, you can take those steps forward, and this is a temporary moment for you.
Agreed.
Steph, what are your thoughts about that quote? Because you know what, I look at you, Steph, and I look at you, Gabby, and the toxic relationship part, it almost mirrors each other's stories. And I think both of you have probably dealt with this with so many other people, so many other women. I mean, what are your thoughts about what Gabby has overcome to get to this point?
Well, we know that toxic relationships negatively affects our health as well. So when you're dealing with that kind of stress, it just exacerbates all the other health issues that are already there. So the fact that you got out, is wonderful, because who knows what would have happened if you would have stayed and tried to make it work, even though you say, like, now you guys are okay and everything, you're able to talk to each other, but you just didn't work well together. And I think that for a lot of people, I just was talking about this before, is that, don't compare your abuse to somebody else's or your toxic relationship to somebody else's. This is an exact example. All that matters is that it wasn't working well with the other person you were with, and you don't have to stay stuck there. And all of that stress that you're getting from trying to make it work with someone who doesn't bring out the best in you is just adding to now health issues. Now, maybe you're having sleep issues, maybe you're eating more, maybe you're drinking more, maybe you're not exercising as much, whatever is happening, it's just adding and exacerbating whatever, health issues you might already have. And then it's just making things worse, and that makes it harder to leave. So the sooner that you can get to a point to put yourself first, and like you, that positive attitude sometimes even keeps us stuck longer, because we're like, oh, I feel good, I can still deal with this,
Yep.
And so you got to be careful, but that positive attitude getting out I think was really helpful for you.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. For us, sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. When I was in that relationship, it was difficult because I had already felt like, he was doing his own thing, he had his hobbies, and I was really with the kids all the time. Because I had CF and I was, compromised with my health, and I couldn't do as much as other people, but I already felt like that single mom. So, when I was like, do I go? Do I stay? I chose to go because I felt like I was already stepping into that within the home. And I knew that if I could get those kids just with me, even half the time, they were with me, and that was something new, and we could rewrite our story together.
Well, now I know why they call you Go-Go Gabby, because you just going and going, not stopping it. And now you're co-parenting and blending families coach. Talk about that work for our viewers that don't understand that, or what your specialty and your expertise has been to empower others.
Yeah. So I work with parents. It used to be just women, but I hosted a summit called the Fearless Woman. And I had a lot of men join who've been in difficult, toxic relationships, trying to co-parent with a toxic ex, just trying to co-parent in general. And during that, I was like, you dads need it too. Like, we all need to support each other. So I work with moms and dads who struggle, whether they are co-parenting with someone who's detached, they don't want anything to do with it. If it was really dangerous situation before, but they have children together, and they do have to, make decisions together, figuring that out and how to go about that. And then also blending families after a separation or a divorce, and really stepping into that not so fast. If I would have known a few things that I know now, when me and my now husband started to, meeting and the kids meeting and stuff, we would have done a few things differently that I love sharing with, my clients and my community. It feels right to do it because you may have your children already and it works. But when you bring in another child that has a biological parent, there's always that connection. And for as much as you want to try and, jump into the connection, not get in the way, if you go about it too fast, or, what you think is right and it's not, like, just that support to help blend families. I've taken what I've gone through and really shared, and I love to do that with others.
I think, there's so many areas and experiences that you have, and one of them is when you go through a divorce, and I had as well, and you're separated from your children at any time. That is so painful and so difficult to overcome, a woman or a man. And I think that's the biggest hurt you could ever go through, is not being there for your children. And did you sense that? And I think you have, but have you used that to really understand the clients and the people that you're working with? Because having experienced that, it could go a long way for others.
Yeah, definitely. The hardest part for me was because I didn't feel like there was the best home environment when they were with their dad. And honestly, I wasn't there to see it. I just knew what I had gone and been through when I was with him. And so understanding and creating that level of compassion for their dad with the relationship between them, not necessarily, I was in a toxic relationship, why should I have compassion for him, but more, think of the good times and the good things with the kids and focus on that, to know that they are in good hands when they're there. And keeping that door open for, you don't have the kids for half the time, but when you do have them, don't try to drill them about the other house. Really just make that experience between the two of you, or the kids and you, just make that new and make that exciting. And you want them to be open to sharing with you if something does go wrong. So when I didn't have my kids, half the time, it was a struggle. But, along with that, you can't change what's going on in the other house. You can just influence good things by, having your household a certain way.
How do you deal with, because I feel like, and Steve, probably you deal with this too, there are so many of my clients that have to deal with toxic exes and sharing responsibility with the kids. And, that's not my expertise, which is why I was so excited to have you on, because I didn't have that struggle. I didn't have children with any past relationship. So I was lucky enough not to have to try to maneuver that. But one of the biggest fears that I hear people talk about is how badly they were treated and how fearful they are for their children having that same experience, and this motherly want and need, and fatherly as well, to protect their child against what they might do to them. How do you deal with that kind of situation?
Yeah. So everybody's different. You know, if it truly is a dangerous situation, we all know that's something that you should take to the police or whatever it is. Don't keep that to yourself. But when it's somewhere like in my situation, we yelled at each other. It got really loud. It was uncomfortable and I was scared for my life sometimes. But knowing like that was him and I see the love that he has for the kids. And I know that they are going to, it's hard to think about because it is difficult, but if you know what you knew, so I knew how his family was, all of that. I truly had to get to a place through a lot of work on my own and, coaches and whatnot. I suffered from depression afterwards and a lot. Believe it. Believe that everything's going to be okay. And we talk about this, but if you say, I think this is going on, you have the story of what it was before, you think that's what's going to keep happening. If you believe that it's going to be bad, you're stepping into that and you are really receiving that negativity. I'm not saying we should all live positively and so excited and stuff. Like I may come off like that, but I struggle with my co-parent still today. And there's things that I just have to say, you know what, he's their dad and they love him. And I believe like he's going to take care of them. And if anything goes wrong, I'm going, I'll know, or someone's going to share that with me. It's difficult. Like I said, it just depends on the situation. But if you keep telling yourself, you know what, it's happened that way with me when we were together. I know it's happening right now. You are just going to really be stuck in that spot of never being able to take that step forward because you knew what you knew. And we all say, well, he's never going to change or she's never going to change, but you really don't know what's going to happen in the next hour.
So what do you think of those parents that try to keep their children away from their ex-partner? And again, they're doing it to try to, in their minds, protect.
Yeah.
But what would you say to those parents that are trying to keep their children from their ex or from their parent?
Look at the relationship. So you and your ex, take out the word ex. That child, that's their dad. That's their mom. When you talk about them, don't say, my ex-husband. If it's a very difficult relationship or not, focus on their dad, my co-parent, because just that small step of taking out that negative and really that bound that you have to them because you were with them or because you were married, that takes you so much further, knowing that you are no longer attached. Like your subconscious knows, like, I am not attached to that person as they are today. I am my own, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, vice versa. So for me, it's, focus on, it's the little things. I call them bite-sized pieces. There's so many bite-sized pieces. We're all overwhelmed every day. And especially after leaving a toxic relationship and having kids, focus on what is good for you, what you need to advocate for you and for the kids. And if you can take them in bite-sized pieces, those little wins will help you, move through your journey in a way that's not like, there's nothing happening. There's nothing changing. I feel like, it's all the same. But if you get those wins and you journal and you see them and you celebrate them, it really puts you that step forward.
Mm-hmm. It says Kick on Healthy Relationships with a Curve. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. That's our amazing guest, Gabby Gast. And parental alienation is so very, very strong, and it could be long lasting. I mean, there are parents out there that call it poison. I mean, this person's poisoning the minds of their children. But again, Stephanie, it's another form of a toxic relationship from the parent to the child. And then whatever they're being told, that child, their view or their perspective on the other parent, true or not true, becomes toxic.
Yeah, and I spoke to, I think, 3 different clients today that were talking about how their relationship with their children has been negatively affected, even though they themselves were the ones who were in an abusive relationship, that child is hearing the other side and now treating them badly, like talking down to them, saying mean things to them, repeating basically what the abuser was saying to them. And now they're kind of like the go-between. So now this, the person is no longer having to deal with the abusive person, but now they have to deal with their child coming in and sharing some of the abusive thoughts or sayings that the abuser was sharing.
Right. Gabby, what's your thoughts on that?
So this happens so often. And one of my clients, when we started working together, she felt like there was something going on with her children, and they're a little older. And, we've been working together for a few months, and they're alienated from her. Like, she knew it was, she saw it coming. And it's so hard because the one thing, and I learned this from Dr. Amy Baker, is when your child comes to you and they are telling you, Dad said you did this, Dad, Mom said this, is that true? And you could all day, back yourself up, like, I would never do that. I never said that. That's not, your dad heard me wrong, or whatever it was. Like, that doesn't help anyone. It just helps that other parent who is alienating, or it seems like they're winning because they're really getting underneath your skin. And so there's just, communication ways when your child comes to you, you prompt them versus replacing what it is they're saying. And you really make them come to, oh yeah, would I say that? Well, no, like, there's just a way to have that conversation. It is so different than when my son just comes to me and is like, you said we were going to do this. And I'm like, but I didn't, what you can talk to them, versus when they're getting influenced by another parent, especially that they trust, you have to like step into that conversation very cautiously and not influence like your idea onto them, because then they're just getting it from both parents, and it's always going to conflict.
Right. So what's the first step in a blended family that you work with your clients with when children that come together? Because it's not always like the Brady Bunch.
No.
And you have to bring it all together, but that must be hard to kind of break through that. It's kind of like an onion. You got to unpeel it, and there's so many layers to it that it's challenging, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I work with families on what I call the 3 C's of co-blending. So it's confidence, compassion, and communication. That can be in co-parenting and blending families. They really go hand in hand. And when it comes to meeting, say meeting my now stepson, I was like, my kids love me. I babysat before. I have great, a niece, and I'm good with kids. So I, things I didn't know then, I just like stepped into it. I'm like, hey, I'm your dad's girlfriend. And he comes in immediately and he's like, and I didn't say it out loud, but like, I have a mom and, my dad. And so it's really just recognizing, like, I went in as, that high, that 10, and he came in and he's like, I'm not so sure about you. And especially it varies on the age of the child. And the funny part is, so then, that's what I work with my clients on, is like, wherever you come in and you feel like they're coming in, we work towards getting more balance so that it's not so, oh my gosh, you're abrupting my life. And you don't want them to resist you. And so when it's funny, because that's how I came into the relationship, and my husband now came into my kids, and he's like, I don't know. And my kids were like, who's this? He has a son and we get to play together. And he was like, because he had gotten out of a toxic relationship as well. And he's like, I don't want to, meet. We waited to meet the kids. And so it's very interesting how you can really go in at like a 10 or a 3 or whatever. And of course our kids went in together as 10s. They're all like, hi. But yeah, so that's like the first step with me, is really recognizing, and even if you've done it already and blending isn't working, you can always reset. And that's, working with families that it feels like things aren't good or they're ever going to get good, and your now marriage might be rocky. You can reset whenever you want.
Right. And Gabby, what's the most rewarding aspect of what you do, and the most challenging? I don't know how it was during the pandemic for you, but can you explain a little bit those differences for yourself?
Yeah, so the most rewarding for me is just hearing that someone else knows that they're not alone. When it's in a toxic relationship, the one like I had was behind closed doors. It was not the same as it was when we were with other people. The ones that were with us a lot kind of knew what was going on and maybe did know, but you really feel alone. And so when I speak or do interviews like this, people listen and they're like, that sounds so much like what I go through. And I feel like I'd never find someone who could really hear and understand what I'm struggling with. So it's just rewarding to me, like when I get that message from a client or just a message online and they're like, I just did this and I feel amazing. That to me always brings tears. And I'm like, thank you for celebrating your wins with me, because I feel like, we say we want to celebrate our wins, but unless you've spoken to someone who's been through it or can relate more closely than just like your best friend, it means so much more to know like I'm making progress and I'm not stuck anymore and moving forward. The pandemic is kind of when I started doing all of this, really speaking up about coaching. And it's just, I love it because I can reach anyone, anywhere. One of my clients is in Australia. I mean, it's so fun to get out and talk with people online. I'd love to meet everybody in person. But I'm so happy that we're able to connect via video like this so often now. Sometimes I'm like, I need a day off the computer, but I'm really, the pandemic was, it's like bittersweet kind of. We were able to really open up our social in a way, but we were also really affected negatively in a way. But we're finding that balance, I feel like, after so long, and I really just love it.
Yeah. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. We're almost coming to an end. Gabby, how can people get a hold of you, contact you, and get to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm at gabbygast.com, just my first and last name. I have a chat box on my website. You message that and you'll reach right to me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Coach_Gabby Gast. Yeah, Coach_Gabby Gast. I'm like, I can't remember. The name is crazy. I just laugh at it. So my husband, I'm like, it's Gast. What's Gabby Gast? And I'm like, yes, it has a ring.
It almost sounds like a movie character. I kind of like it. It kind of flows, right? Steve Vaccaro doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Stephanie McPhail kind of flows, but
but Gabby Gast works really well.
Yeah,
Stephanie McPhail was really good when I was a teacher because kids would be really afraid when they'd see my last name, like, oh, I'm gonna McPhail. Like that was scary. And actually my married name is Charon, and my student said to me at the time, we like McPhail better because Charon sounds like a warm hug. I'm like, yeah, a little bit more. But Gabby Gast, just like you said, Steve, that like flows. That works really well.
That works.
I got to change my name. I got to fix this by next week. But before we go, we got a call from a Milwaukee hospital. They want their pants back.
I love it.
They were like the nurse pants a long time ago. They used to be really nice. And I was like, oh, can I just leave with these? And they're like, they just turn around. They're like, have a nice day. Go home.
Well,
see, no, when David was in the hospital last year, they just put 2 on him. He had to, if not, he was walking around butt out. Like they were just letting him. I'm like, I come in, I'm like, wait, close this thing up. You can't let him walk around like that.
Yeah, when I was in the hospital last year for my accident with my foot, I actually put it on the wrong way. I had to flip it the other way. So that's a whole nother story. But anyway,
of my transplant, it was like butt open. And my mom's like, I don't think she's going to be happy to know that like she's walking around the hospital with like.
Gabby Gast, you are wonderful. You're going to have to come back on the show because we all are challenged with these kind of relationships and it's ongoing. And Stephanie, amazing guest.
And just Gabby's just so inspirational. You know, it's not just the toxic relationships and the helping blended families, but, you know, overcoming, you know, cystic fibrosis and all the things. And we talked, and obviously we're running out of time, but I love your story of, you know, and this is what we get so excited about. You left that toxic relationship and found a wonderful partner who knew that you were sick and was fine and okay and understanding with, like, I want to be with you however it takes, sick or not sick, I want to be with you. And I just think that is what I think is inspiring for so many people watching, is to know, like, hey, you're not so broken. People will love you for who you are. Just show that beautiful, you know, that beautiful energy off, and the right people will come around. You just got to get rid of the bad stuff first.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, Gabby, God bless you and your family. Thank you so very much for sharing an hour with us, and an amazing inspiration. And you do brighten up this world. So thank you.
Thank you both. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Wow, Stephanie. Week after week, it's like turning on the hits here. It's like top 100 amazing people.
Seriously, we're so lucky to get to meet all these different people, and of course, you know, share different aspects of kicking unhealthy relationships to the curb, because there really is so many different angles to this. And if we can just inspire one person to realize that they don't have to stay trapped, then everything we do is worth it.
That's right. Well, September is flying by. September 29th. We have a little new segment here, This Day in History, because we got to teach a little history. You worked in the schools. I worked in the schools. But what happened on this day on September 29th through the years? So check this out. Stephanie, thank you so very much. Have a great night. Guys, thank you for watching, tuning. You have a lot of choices. You chose to watch us, so thank you so much.
And can I jump in really quick? By the time this airs on cable, it will be officially National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I'm just going to throw that out there. You know, keep in mind that this is happening, and be aware of your surroundings and people that are suffering, and reach out to those who need the help.
And starting next week, a new cable time for us. It's going to be every Friday at 6 p.m.
Oh, cool. It's like a happy hour time. That's awesome.
Happy hour. So we can do our thing on Wednesday. You can see it on Friday. So we're all good.
I like it. Sounds good. I'm excited. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
September 29th, 1938. Europe's major powers agree to let Nazi Germany annex Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland region. The next day, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain says the pact, signed in the German city of Munich, means peace for our time.
As symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
But Nazi Germany's dictator Adolf Hitler soon violates the agreement, triggering World War II nearly a year later. 1988. America returns to manned spaceflight for the first time since the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Shuttle Discovery blasts off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, nearly 3 years after Challenger explodes shortly after liftoff. 1978. Pope John Paul I is found dead in his Vatican apartment at age 65. He served one of the shortest reigns as head of the Roman Catholic Church in recent times, 33 days. His successor, John Paul II, becomes one of the longest-serving pontiffs. 1954. One of baseball's greatest catches as the New York Giants and the Cleveland Indians open the World Series. Willie Mays, with the Giants, makes his over-the-shoulder running catch of Vic Wertz's drive to center field. Announcer Jack Brickhouse is at New York's Polo Grounds.
Willie Mays with a catch which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
And 1935.
Great balls of fire!
Jerry Lee Lewis, the piano-playing star of early rock and roll, is born in Faraday, Louisiana. Today in History, September 29th. Camille Bohannon, The Associated Press.